In 2013, a letter arrived at the San Francisco Police Department in which the sender claimed to be the mastermind behind the escape from Alcatraz Prison. He stated that he was ready to turn himself in and confess everything, but with one condition. He wanted to receive proper medical treatment after his illness had worsened, as he was over 80 years old. Strangely, the American police issued a statement just 1 hour later announcing their acceptance of the offer and that they were awaiting his arrival, assuring him that they would provide him with the best possible care. However, the inmate never contacted them again. It seemed he was toying with them, or perhaps he had died. The important thing is that the inmate did not reach out since that moment, and the escape from Alcatraz Prison remains the most ingenious and daring escape known to humanity, as the place from which they escaped was infamous for being called the Rock. To those who are following me for the first time, welcome to the Wreck Stories channel, where we discuss all things strange and mysterious on planet Earth. As always, let's begin. Today I will tell you about the smartest escape plan ever known to humanity. A story filled with events and details that are beyond the imagination. Most importantly, it is documented, and all its details are 100% true. Because of this story, the prison was closed and turned into a tourist attraction, with a sign at the entrance stating, "Dreams of freedom shattered on the Rock of Alcatraz." The island before you is neither a tourist destination nor a place you would wish to visit someday. This island is Alcatraz Prison, which was established in 1934 and is considered the most fortified prison in human history. Its construction and the details surrounding it were meticulously designed not only to prevent inmates from escaping, but also to discipline them and destroy their psyche. This was done because this prison served as a correctional facility, and all its inmates were prisoners transferred from other jails across the United States. This means that when someone commits a crime anywhere in the US, they are incarcerated according to the crime they committed. However, when a person commits a crime or breaks the law while in prison, they are transferred to Alcatraz as punishment. You can imagine what Alcatraz was like. First, the prison is located on a deserted island of 22 acres, situated 2 kilometers from San Francisco. The climate on this island is extremely cold, surrounded by ice blocks. In the summer, specifically in August, the seawater temperature can reach only 12 degrees Celsius, while for the rest of the year, the water temperature does not exceed 0 degrees. Additionally, there are very strong water currents, making swimming in them impossible. Above all this, the American authorities promoted the idea that the waters surrounding the island were filled with large schools of sharks and electric eels. So, if someone thought of braving the cold water and attempted to escape, they would know that large schools of sharks and electric eels were waiting for them. Of course, this information was not accurate. The goal of the authorities was to instill fear in the prisoners and prevent them from even contemplating escape. And my friend, let's suppose that one of the inmates managed to escape and swim in those waters, avoiding the sharks and electric eels. He would not be able to get past the snipers deployed throughout the prison, who were ordered to shoot anyone attempting to escape without mercy. The prison was designed in a way that made everyone exposed within it. The cell was small, surrounded by a metal wall that revealed everything inside it, containing a bed, a sink, and an exposed toilet. Guards were active around the clock, periodically searching the cells to monitor the activities of all inmates. Exiting the cell was prohibited for any reason other than for meals or yard time. The meal duration in the prison kitchen was only half an hour, and the yard time in the prison yard was only 6 minutes. Bathroom access was once a week, and the inmates were responsible for cleaning, cooking, and maintenance inside the prison, where they worked on a rotational basis, each with a specific task. The inmate was only taken out of the cell to perform tasks, and once the work was done, he would be returned immediately to his cell. Inmates would sit on their beds doing nothing to avoid punishment. Certainly, Alcatraz was not just a punishment for the inmates. Even notorious guards or law-breaking police officers worked in Alcatraz as a punishment for them. Therefore, you would find the worst guards, police, and staff working there. The relationship between the inmates and the guards was extremely poor, to the point that the behaviors they exhibited there were far from normal, making the prison known as hell. To everyone, this prison was a miniature version of hell, and there was a very famous phrase written everywhere inside the prison. On the rock of Alcatraz, your dreams of freedom shatter. This meant that the idea of escaping from prison was an impossible dream. Nevertheless, despite everything I've mentioned, there were 14 attempted escapes from the prison, and all the inmates who tried to escape were executed, instilling fear in the hearts of the remaining prisoners. But let's not forget that the inmates were very cunning. After everything I've explained about the conditions of the prison, how could these inmates escape from it? Now, we will recount the events step by step. The story is filled with events and details that are hard to comprehend. It all began in 1961 with an inmate named Alan West. Alan was a very ordinary prisoner, age 31, who was transferred to Alcatraz after being involved in a brawl with several inmates in the prison he was in before being moved to Alcatraz, which was the San Francisco County Jail. Some sources say he was transferred to Alcatraz after a failed escape attempt from his previous prison. The important thing is that from the moment Alan entered the prison, the thought of escape never left his mind. On one occasion, Alan was assigned the task of cleaning the prison roof. While he was cleaning the surface and using a broom, he reached the top of his cell and noticed a refreshing breeze coming from above the ceiling. He looked up and saw a large ventilation opening. To his surprise, the ventilation opening was wide enough for him to pass through. When he peered inside, he saw the sky, indicating it was a large tube connecting his location to the prison roof. And even the metal bars covering the opening were corroded and old, which meant they could easily be removed. If he managed to pry them off, he would be able to escape from the prison. However, this was not going to be easy. He would certainly need a team to plan and assist him in the escape. This is where the second man in the plan, Frank Morris, comes into play. Frank was 33 years old and had also been transferred to Alcatraz after attempting to escape from his previous prison, where he was caught. When he was apprehended, the prison warden told him, "I will transfer you to Alcatraz, and I promise you that there you will forget freedom for the rest of your life." The important thing is that Frank and Alan were neighbors in the prison, separated by just one wall. When Alan returned from his assigned cleaning task, he told Frank what he had seen, saying, "This is our chance to escape." Of course, Alan was the one who had the idea and discovered the ventilation opening, while Frank was the mastermind behind everything. He laid out all the details of this plan and was smarter than 98% of people, with an IQ of 133, indicating he was a genius. The first thing Frank did was tell Alan, "We need to be a team, and we must bring in others to help us escape." Frank thought for 5 days about a suitable person to assist them, and in the end, he chose the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence Anglin. The reason for choosing them was that they were his cell neighbors, and secondly, because they were brothers and shared a cell, making it easy to communicate with them and give them instructions at the same time. Every night, Frank would sit beside the wall with Alan, discussing the details of the plan, and once their conversation was over, he would move to the other side of the cell to the Anglin brothers' cell and inform them of what had happened, giving them the instructions. The first thing Frank asked Alan was that the next time he cleaned the prison roofs, he should thoroughly observe the area with his eyes, know everything that was there, and look for a way to reach the ventilation opening. Indeed, when it was Alan's turn to clean the roof, he swept the entire area, and the surprise was that behind the cells, there was a long corridor about 1 meter wide, which served as a ventilation space between the cells, with sewage pipes running through it. Of course, this corridor was abandoned, and no one passed through it. If they could reach it, it would be easy for them to climb to the roof of the cell and thus access the ventilation opening and escape. The good news was that each cell had a small window in the wall, measuring 30 centimeters in width and 20 centimeters in height, located under the wash basin, and this window connected the cell to the corridor we mentioned. However, the problem was that the small window was covered with a perforated iron plate, making it impossible for a person to pass through. But Frank had a solution. He noticed that the prison walls were very old, having not been repaired for over 15 years, and due to the island's humid climate and the high salinity of the sea, the walls had become eroded and easy to dig into. So, Frank asked the team to smuggle spoons from the kitchen to use for digging. Indeed, each one of them managed to smuggle 2 spoons over the course of a month, one for digging and another as a backup. They began to widen the window that was under the wash basin. The Anglin brothers used forks along with the spoons, which helped them expand the hole more quickly. Of course, during the digging process, they faced 2 problems. The first was how to dispose of the cement and dust generated by the digging, and the second was how to cover the hole so that signs of digging wouldn't show. Before I tell you how the 2 problems were solved, you should know that the team dug every day at 9 in the evening. Why? Because at this time, prisoners were allowed to sing and play musical instruments for a full hour. This period was an opportunity for the prisoners to entertain themselves and change the gloomy atmosphere they lived in. Although each prisoner was in his cell, they would play music together, which was very enjoyable. Once this party started, Alan, Frank, and the Anglin brothers would begin digging. Everyone enjoyed the party. The surveillance wasn't strict, and the sound of the songs and music covered the sound of digging. Their plan was for each one of them to start digging from his own cell, while one of the Anglin brothers dug and the other watched the corridor for guards using a small mirror to scan the entire path. When he saw a guard coming from a distance, he would cough loudly. Upon hearing the cough, everyone would cover the hole with their own clothes and then lie on their beds. As for the solution to the 2 problems, to get rid of the cement and dust, they disposed of it through the window openings in the corridor behind the cell. Since the digging process took over 6 months, the amounts of dust and cement were small daily and could be easily hidden. As for the second problem, which was covering the hole so that signs of digging wouldn't show, it was the task of the genius Frank and John Anglin. The 2 worked in the prison's painting workshop, and they produced paint there that was similar in color to the walls of the cell. They used newspapers, cardboard, small pieces of stone, and cement to create a model that looked exactly like the hole under the wash basin, and they painted it the same color as the walls. After finishing the digging each day, they would cover the hole with this model, and they would cleverly hang their clothes under the basin to cover the hole without raising any suspicions. Since the guards did not enter the cells, it was impossible for them to suspect the operation. After a whole year, no one felt that what was covering the hole was just a cardboard model. No one thought that behind this model was a hole through which a person could fully pass. After about 6 months, the hole was ready, and on one occasion, they exited through those openings where Frank, Alan, and the Anglin brothers met in the corridor behind the cells. They thoroughly examined and studied the place, and it became clear to them that the escape plan would be very easy. Once they reached this place, it would be easy to access the large ventilation opening. After finishing their tour of that corridor, they returned to their cells to begin the second part of the plan. The problem they faced, which had no solution, was what would they do once they got out of prison and were outside? How would they swim toward the city? The situation was very difficult due to the cold water, strong currents, ice, in addition to the well-known rumor that the area was full of sharks and electric eels. At this point, Frank confidently said to them, "We will make a boat and life jackets from the raw materials we have available." The idea was good and intuitive, but how and why did Frank have all this confidence? And where would they get the necessary materials? What no one knew was that Frank had read all the books and magazines that were available in the prison. Of course, these magazines that were brought to the prison weren't used for reading. Rather, The prisoners used them to wrap their food sandwiches or as paper to cover the ground from dirt. Any magazine that was available in the market and produced excess copies would be directed to prisons, especially to Alcatraz. The copies they received sometimes reached 2,000 or 5,000 copies, and it didn't matter what was written inside the magazine. What mattered was how they would use it. When Alan first arrived at the prison, he worked in the kitchen and also in the painting workshop. But Frank was the one who read those magazines. One time, he read an article in one of the magazines. The article talked about making a boat and a life jacket from materials available at home, and from that moment on, he memorized the idea, which stayed in his mind because he was sure he would need it someday. The problem was that Frank couldn't remember all the details of the article. So on his first day of work in the painting workshop, he searched for that magazine. When he found it, he tore out part of the article and hid it, taking it with him to his cell. When the Anglin brothers and his friend Alan learned that the article was in their possession, they were very happy with this news because they had never thought about how they would make the boat. Now they had everything, the method of making it and the raw materials. But where would they find a suitable place to build a boat that could carry 4 people without anyone discovering them? At this point, Frank asked Alan and the Anglin brothers to temporarily halt the plan until they found a suitable place and method to build the boat. He told them, "Let me think until I come up with a suitable idea." What distinguished these people was their flexibility in executing the plan, their patience, and that Frank's instructions to them were commands. Everyone agreed that Frank was their lifeline and the only means for the plan's success. Since he asked them to temporarily halt the plan, everyone complied, knowing that this was in the team's best interest. The important thing is that Frank, at one point, was sitting in his cell and noticed the prisoners cleaning the roofs of the cells across from his. He observed that during the cleaning process, a thick dust was generated and dirt would fall down. This annoyed both the guards and the prisoners, which sparked a brilliant idea in his mind. "If I time it right, we can proceed with the plan." Frank asked Alan that the next time he cleaned the roof, he should gather all the dirt and dust on the roof of Alan's cell, precisely above the spot where they would escape from. And as soon as it was above that spot, he should throw all the dirt and dust below. And when a guard confronted him, or when another prisoner yelled at him, he could suggest to the guard that they place old blankets over the opening so that no more dust or dirt would fall inside the cell. Indeed, they implemented this plan, and to their surprise, the guards agreed with the idea, telling him, "Cover that opening with anything you want, as long as dust and dirt don't fall on us again." When Alan heard this, he was overjoyed. He went down and brought blankets, covering a distance of 10 meters, meaning he now had 10 meters around the ventilation opening covered and hidden from the guards. This meant they now had a workshop to work in every day. But there was a new problem. How would they leave their rooms and go up without anyone noticing? This time, the solution lay with Frank and Clarence Anglin, who suggested creating models that looked like real heads, with the model shaped like a natural head with hair and skin color resembling natural skin tone. Since John and Frank worked in the painting workshop, they managed to smuggle paper, cardboard, and paint, mixing them so that they matched the natural skin color. Of course, they created the models using toilet paper and regular cardboard, mixing them with soap, toothpaste, and the cement produced from the digging process. They successfully created models that closely resembled the shape of a head. Using the paint, they were able to color the models to match skin color. They had only one problem left. Where would they get hair for these models? At this point, Clarence Anglin, who was the prison barber, suggested that he had been smuggling a large amount of hair into his cell every day, dividing the amount he had with his brother John, as well as Clarence, Alan, and Frank. Thus, the models they had were adorned with hair, completing the process of shaping them into human-like heads. They could then leave those models on the bed, covering them as a substitute when they were busy in their workshop making the boat. Every day, when the daily party began and when the music and playing started, they left the head models they had made on the bed looking like a sleeping person, and then climbed up through the ventilation opening under the wash basin to start working on the boat. The work was divided into two parts. The first was cutting the iron bars that blocked the main large ventilation opening, and the second was making the inflatable boat and life jackets. Question: what will they use to make the boat and life jackets? Answer: they will make them from soft coats. There were large quantities of these coats inside the prison because they were used for the work prisoners did outside the prison walls, especially in cold and unpredictable weather. Frank planned this carefully, anticipating that the coats wouldn't be used in the summer as they would be stored away and not questioned, making it easier to steal them unnoticed. Indeed, over the course of 2 months, every time the party and music started, they would go up and begin making the boat. They placed the head models in their beds and continued cutting the iron bars that blocked the main large opening. After 2 months of hard work, they were ready for the escape. They chose June 11, 1962, as the escape date. At 10 o'clock at night, the guards turned off the prison lights, and all the prisoners fell asleep. As for Frank, Alan, and the Anglin brothers, they placed their artificial heads in the beds and exited through the ventilation opening under the wash basin, climbing up to the roof of the cells. But something unexpected happened. Alan couldn't get out of his cell. The day before, he had placed a piece of cardboard and a large amount of cement over the opening as a precaution, which made it too narrow for him to pass through. Another account suggests that Alan hadn't been climbing with them during the boat-making period, as he was monitoring the situation, and during this time, he had gained weight, making it difficult for him to fit through the opening. His friends told him they would continue on, and he could catch up with them when he managed to widen the opening. They proceeded until they reached the entire roof of the prison, then stealthily descended and found that the guards were not present as rumored. They reached the metal fence surrounding the prison, cut the locks, and passed through the fence. When they reached the beach, they pulled out the boat and began inflating it, as well as the life jackets, using a pump made from a musical accordion, transforming part of its sound mechanism into a blower. They waited for Alan for a while on the beach, but after losing hope of his arrival, they left in the boat toward freedom. The next day, at 7:30 in the morning, the guards began their usual prisoner checks. When they reached the Anglin brothers' cell, they noticed they were still sleeping. But when one of the guards hit one of their heads with a stick, the head fell to the ground. The guards were startled and entered the cell to discover that the brothers had vanished. Ironically, all the tools and models used by the team are still preserved in the prison museum today, attracting tourists from around the world. When they entered Alan's room, they found him sitting on the floor smoking, extremely depressed. He cooperated with the investigators and told them the entire story, from the beginning of the plan to the end, after losing hope in life and asking the guards to end his life. The irony was that Frank kept all possibilities in his mind and anticipated events. When they asked Alan where his friends had escaped to, he told them that the only person who knew their destination was Frank. Whenever the friends would ask Frank where they would go after the escape, he would tell them that it was a secret that only he should know. Of course, search and emergency teams went out to look for the boat, but they found no trace of them. So the guards told the prisoners that the 3 escapees had drowned in the sea, and that they had indeed managed to escape from the prison, but couldn't withstand the sharks and died before reaching the shore. Naturally, this was not true. The operation was a complete success, and the investigators found the boat and life jackets on the other side, but they lied about their escape to cover up the scandal that had occurred at the prison. The U.S. authorities remained tight-lipped about the incident and the details surrounding the escape, how they managed to evade capture for 20 years. Years after the incident, specifically in 1979, the film Escape from Alcatraz was produced. Strangely enough, most of the events in the film, despite being accurate, were written in an unauthorized manner, and there was no information obtained from an official source. The U.S. authorities were oddly reserved about the story, yet the filmmakers had precise and accurate details. That same year, the prison was closed, And instead of saying, "Alcatraz crushes your dreams of freedom," they wrote on the prison door, "Dreams of freedom shattered on Alcatraz Rock." After this story, the prison was completely shut down and became a tourist attraction. In 1975, the Anglin brothers sent a special photograph to the U.S. police to confirm that they were still alive. As I mentioned, in 2013, Frank Morris, the mastermind, sent a letter to the police informing them that he was ready to turn himself in, but he never contacted them again and vanished since then. Unfortunately, in this entire story, the only one who saddened me was Alan West, who discovered the escape plan and helped implement it, but in the end, he couldn't escape. Perhaps that's a good thing, because without Alan, no one would have known the details of this story, and we wouldn't have seen this great film. That was our story for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in these strange tales, don't forget to subscribe to the Rex Stories channel for more exciting and mysterious stories. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.